At ICCU, to make a difference, it takes just one connection. A friendly face, an open ear, a helping hand. And then something amazing happens. We find out that we're better together. This is what Idaho Central does in our communities every day. We help our members with the small things and big dreams. This is what believing in you is all about. Idaho Central Credit Union, looking after your daily balance.
It may have been a new job or starting a new business. Maybe you were looking for a better place to raise a family. It's possible you were returning home to the place you love, to Idaho. Whatever your reason for coming, 40 years or 4 months ago, Lithia Ford of Boise wants you to know you're welcome here. Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
When it comes to concrete, we've got you covered. RowPaint.com offers custom concrete coating services for your garage, business, warehouse, and more. And we do it in one day. We are your complete concrete coatings solution.
Well, happy Tuesday, folks. BJ Rain, Jay Tust with you. This is Bronco Nation News Live, BroncoNationNews.com, presented by RowPaint.com, the official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics. Jay, forgot my Wi-Fi connector to my laptop or my Ethernet cord in Portland, so we're going on Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet today, so we'll see until I can make it out to the Apple Store. So if I freeze up, just start talking and take it from here and
okay.
Something to the paycheck. We'll see. But
you buy a laptop that's basically the price of a car, and I was sitting right next to you in Portland, and you just have the damn most difficult time, bud, trying to get internet.
I forgot about that. Yeah, the whole first half. If the game, I don't know what was going worse, Boise State's performance or my Ethernet situation on the internet. But we. Stupid Macs. I love the Macs, but they don't make the ports the same for the Ethernet. They make you go buy the little $30 cord. And so I left it in the media room in Portland, and now I'm going on Wi-Fi. So I'm going to head out to the Apple Store today at the mall and get another one. But so if there is Wi-Fi issues today, folks, I apologize. But it is Tuesdays with Tust, and Jay is here, and we're going to wrap up the basketball season. We're kind of doing that all week with our various guests here, kind of getting final thoughts on the basketball season. We'll spin the next couple of weeks back to spring football, and then I think after spring football, I want to get into more of a almost a show a player maybe on the basketball team, just kind of divulge this roster. What do we think is going to happen? Where can guys help and move forward? We'll get into a little bit of that today with some of the key pieces, but I still have some off-season topics, Jay, that hopefully we can keep you on the payroll and keep this thing going. I know folks aren't quite ready to turn to spring football. We'll get ready to that next week, but still a lot to unpack with this basketball team, man, and what they did. And I know it's, it was tough watching that Gonzaga-Memphis game, just wondering, and I'm not saying Boise State would have done that to Gonzaga, certainly, but at least to have had the chance and to wonder what Boise State could have done. I think that was the most disappointing thing for folks, whether you want to talk about the draw, the game, whatever, was just we were so close to finally getting that chance against Boise State, and not even just Gonzaga, but just one of the top premier teams in the country. And didn't happen, obviously, but what were kind of your overall takeaways, I guess, from the trip to Portland and Boise State's performance and just kind of putting a bow on the season?
I'm going to fire back with a question at you this morning here, BJ. As a Washington State alumnus, we barely ever get an invite to the big dance, right? Covering Boise State in my 10, 11 years, I've had the chance to cover it with Boise State in it 3 times. And the first 2 obviously were to Dayton. There was a little bit of a discrepancy, I guess you could say, in how Boise State was feeded and how a lot of people felt they should have been seeded, not feeded, seeded. When Kansas, who has gone to 32 straight tournaments, is that right?
Sounds about right.
How often do you walk away being like, man, this perfect seed, we got a great draw. Like, and I guess the reason why I'm asking you this is it's March Madness. It's a field of 68 of the best teams in college basketball. How often do teams see where they're placed and say, we feel great about this?
I was pretty furious they were a 1 seed. I thought they should have been higher this year.
Yeah, exactly. Probably. But how often though? And the reason why I just asked that is because myself included, man, but as you kind of watch the tournament and you kind of get further and further from those emotions of Selection Sunday, you realize that, man, it doesn't really freaking matter who you face or where you're at. I mean, anything can happen. And that's definitely been the theme of this tournament specifically. I mean, St. Peter's over Kentucky. Come on now. Like, who's picking Miami and Iowa State in the Sweet 16? Although I will say, did kind of like Iowa State's draw as an 11 seed. But, I know a lot of it was unfair, but like, when is it ever going to be fair for a school like Boise State, right? Like, you're always going to have to beat somebody, pull a couple of upsets in order to get just a win at the tournament, right?
Yep.
So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, Memphis was tremendously talented, and a lot of us walked out of that arena that covered Boise State saying Memphis is going to give Gonzaga a run. Like, they are going to test Gonzaga. I will say this: I'm equally as confident as I was in that, and it happened. I'm also equally as confident that I think Gonzaga is going to roll Arkansas. And when I say roll, like 10 points or whatever at this point, but that game will be much easier, in my opinion, for Gonzaga than Memphis was for Gonzaga.
Well, and it's all about, it's your complete body of work. It's not how you're playing the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, when they look at that tournament resume, it's good or bad. For Boise State, losing to Bakersfield way back in November still mattered. I mean, if they didn't have that loss on there, they're probably a 7 seed.
Probably are.
I mean, and for Memphis, they had some bad losses too, but the tournament's all about who's hot, who's playing well. And unfortunately for the seeding, Boise State probably should have been a higher seed, but Memphis should have been a higher seed too. I mean, you look at, based on how they're playing, that was a second round matchup type of game, really, when it came down to how they're playing lately. But does the loss, I know he asked you going in, Jay, but now that it's happened, does the loss change your overall feeling or what Boise State fans should take away from the season?
If I'm being honest, going down to Las Vegas, I really thought that San Diego State was going to win the tournament. I did. I'm just being honest with you. And so every time Boise State had me in that position where I was like, man, I think this might be the one where they just can't quite pull it off or something like that. For the most part, they always, proved me and everybody else wrong. Like, they won a bunch of those big games down the stretch. And so finally going to Portland, I was like, I kind of feel like Memphis is going to give them a run for their money, but Boise State's continued to prove, they've continued to prove me wrong. So maybe they get this one. I guess what I'm saying, BJ, is that they checked all the boxes on everything. So it kind of just felt like it was almost their fate in order to check that one last box that hasn't been checked in school history, and they came up a little bit short. Does that mean this season was a failure or anything like that? Heavens no. This is one of, if not the best season in school history, and that's how fans and everybody need to remember this team, like, without a doubt in my mind. It just kind of felt like they'd done so much. It felt like they were going to get it, and they came up just a little bit short, obviously, of that first NCAA tournament win.
Hey, if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, we ask you to please go over to YouTube, youtube.com/Bronco Nation News. You can go there and watch them, and it's easier to comment through the YouTube channel. And if you would subscribe, please. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We're over 900 now, Jay. We're getting closer.
Okay.
So if we can get to 1,000, we're only about 40,000 behind KTVB's YouTube page. So let's start. The climb is on now. But if you can help us out, youtube.com/Bronco Nation News. I don't know how it works, but if you get over 1,000, apparently it helps in like the search and things like that. So we would appreciate that if you would do that. And while Jay is here and while I've got the graphics on the screen, might as well give a quick shout out if you're interested, just so you know, it's coming up soon. June 3rd is the Bronco Nation News Golf Tournament. June 3rd. It's going to be out at Timberstone Golf Course in Caldwell. maybe sneaking out later this week to play out there in Caldwell. I really like Timberstone, the best greens in the valley. It's a great course if you haven't been out there. It's only about 30 minutes from the Flying Y. It's not as far as everybody says. So get out to Timberstone. You can book a tee time at playtimberstone.com. Kelly Christensen's a big Boise State fan out there, and so it's a fun time out at Timberstone. But again, we're having the tournament there June 3rd. We'll be putting the details on soon, but Jay Tust has verbally committed to play in this tournament, so you may get lucky and get Jay Tust in your group if you want to do that. I don't know how lucky that would be actually, Jay, in terms of the golfing, but
no, just play in the group behind me, and you'll probably find a bunch of my golf balls.
Maybe you should sign them before you hit them, so if somebody finds one, it's a collector's item. Yeah. That's why I'm going to be running the tournament and not playing. I don't want to hold up the pace of play or anything while folks are looking for my ball, but we're going to have the signups going in about 2 weeks or so, a week or two here on BroncoNationNews.com. We'll keep you updated, but go ahead and save the date. We got Jay, we got Mike Prater. I think Matt Boucher is going to play. We got a couple coaches for Boise State that I'm still working on the rules on what I can say, but there's going to be some folks you've seen the last couple months. I'll just say that out there playing in the tournament as well. Looking forward to it. Going to be a lot of fun out there. That's June 3rd. So if you got a comment or a question, here's Rudy chiming in saying he would pay to play with Tust. So
maybe that's a good thing.
You're going to have the option. Actually, you're going to have the option potentially. So we're actually going to give a portion of the proceeds, Jay, to the Idaho Youth Sports Commission. I know you've worked with them in the past, and I've really intrigued by what they're doing in terms of helping, pay the entry fee and the equipment for, some of the underprivileged youth around town, particularly in some of the outline areas, Parma and, New Plymouth and Cuna and Mountain Home and some of those areas. And they also pay for training for the coaches, seminars, things like that. So they do a lot of great things, and they got a Jake Plummer camp coming up, I know, at some point in the next couple of months. They do a lot of cool things. So we're going to be donating a portion of the money to them and also helping, fund things like paying Jay Tust. So, you want to see Jay on there, come out to the golf tournament and play with them. So, no, it's going to be fun, June 3rd. So looking forward to that, and we'll keep you updated on the details. Jay, I mean, the biggest question marks, obviously, there's no denying the offseason storyline is that the big three, who comes back, who goes. Let's just take them one at a time. And, I'll give you my gut feeling, and you can give me your gut feeling. We're not obviously going to, old takes exposed or whatever this, come in the future. I'm sure I'll be wrong on all three. But I guess we'll start with Marcus Shaver. Such a tough end to the season for him. And obviously was dealing with the sickness. Sounds like was dealing with some other kind of injury Leon Rice was alluding to, but certainly 1 for 10, not what he wanted in his last NCAA tournament game. Your gut feel, is Marcus Shaver on the roster next year?
This is the one out of all the three that I feel is kind of a 50-50, BJ. I mean, it's, Marcus Shaver is going to be able to go make money somewhere playing basketball. People shouldn't just automatically jump to the NBA. Like it's not the NBA or bust for everybody. It's a guy that can go overseas and make a good paycheck. And does he want to do that now, or just wait a year and when he's a year older and basically make the same paycheck? I mean, that's up to Marcus. I think that one for me, BJ, is like a 50-50 though. And it kind of, with how many big shots he hit earlier in the year, I think everybody was kind of waiting. Like it just kind of felt like it was his destiny to hit one of those in the NCAA tournament to propel Boise State to a big victory. Instead, whether it be the Mountain West tournament or the NCAA tournament, he really struggled to shoot it. And let's face it, a guy of Marcus Shaver's talent that was as efficient on offense as he was for most of the season doesn't just all of a sudden, lose that ability. And over the last 4 games of the season, all the postseason games, he shot under 18% from the field. So I think whether it be his illness that Leon Rice told us about in Vegas, or whether it be the injury that he's clearly battling that Leon kind of alluded to after the NCAA tournament game, it all just caught up with him. So this is going to be my least aggressive answer, BJ, but he's 50-50 in my mind. I think Bronco Nation should hope and cross their fingers that he comes back.
Do you think the struggles at the end of the season impacts him one way or the other?
I think that golly, you could really go one way or the other with this. You could realize that, hey man, I might get injured next year and I need to cash in now. Or he could have that feeling like, I had such a good year. I didn't love the way that it ended. I felt like I wanted to end it better. Let's run it back again next year. And so, if Boise State gets him back, like, I mean, that would be phenomenal. It is funny. I mean, like, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall right now, BJ, but you kind of have to wonder where you go if he does leave, and are one of the younger guys ready to step into his shoes, which are pretty big shoes to fill? I don't know. So do you hit the transfer portal again? It was funny. I feel like a guy like David Jenkins Jr. You remember that name? David Jenkins Jr. He played in the NCAA tournament with South Dakota State. He transferred to UNLV, and then he transferred this past year to Utah. And just yesterday, apparently, he re-entered the transfer portal again. And he's a 6'2" guard that can really shoot it. I'm not saying like that's who Boise State targets or anything. I guess I'm just saying is that you probably have to, if Marcus doesn't come back, you probably need to take a look at the transfer portal and see if you can replace his production. Just because, I mean, again, do you think, BJ, do you think anybody on the roster right now could fill Marcus Shaver Jr.'s shoes next year?
No, you said where do they go? And it's you're right. 2 words: transfer portal. They would have to go get. And there's already we had people with Johnny yesterday saying they thought not having a true point guard on this year's roster was an issue. And I think Shaver did fine, but Acott is 6'8". I mean, I certainly get maybe the true pass first, point guard type guy, maybe, but right. I mean, Boise State, both those guys are more scorers. And I get it, but that was one thing that people brought up yesterday, that they need to go get a true point guard. You could argue Marcus could be a little bit more of that guy, but he's certainly more of a scoring guard.
Well, I just think that I don't know if that really fits what Leon does. Like, he has been for years now about positionless basketball. And so for a matchup like Memphis, you do see Marcus Shaver all of a sudden start to handle the ball a lot more, because Memphis is picking you up 90 feet from the bucket. When you get into more of that half court offense, I mean, that's a great spot for E-Man to be in, because he's 6'8" and can see over everybody. So that just goes to show you another reason why I kind of felt like Memphis was a little bit of a tough matchup for Boise State. Is just because they didn't really allow Boise State maybe to play to their complete strengths at time on offense. And that's why in the second half, man, you just saw everybody get the hell out of Abu Tijab's way, and he just took over. But that's I don't know. I don't know, man. If you want that, I mean, basically, Boise State kind of had that in Ray J. Dennis, right? And that doesn't necessarily wasn't a fit, right?
Yep. For him, and again, he averaged 13.3 points per game, led the team with 57 threes. But by the way, it was only 2 more threes, hard to believe, than Emmanuel Acott had for the season. But he only shot 35% from 3. But again, 13.3, started at 34 games of the 35 Boise State played, averaged a team high 33 minutes per game. So obviously he was out there more than anybody else this season in terms of what he provided. I actually, Jay, if I'm ranking them, I went him first because he's the most confident that I have in returning. I've been getting some flack for this. Some people have been a little surprised with my thoughts on this. I went on the radio and then heard from some people, but I have Marcus Shaver right now as the most likely to return. I just see him as, from a professional basketball standpoint, maybe being third in terms of what his pro prospects are of signing a deal or playing. I think he's got a chance, and he certainly will play overseas or somewhere. Right. But I think he's third. I think he might want to, ride this college thing out as long as he possibly can and take advantage of the extra year. And I would expect probably for all 3, but from what I've been told, Marcus will at least quote unquote declare for the draft, try to go out and see where he, stands in all this, a la Derek Alston Jr. But when the
formality at this point,
but when the dust settles,
not to do it.
Yep. But when the dust settles, I right now I'm the most confident of the 3 that, in my opinion, Marcus Shaver Jr. will be back next season. No, total inside info or someone's telling me that. I mean, I've had obviously some conversations with people, but it's also just a feel in terms of their pro prospects. I've got Marcus Shaver Jr. again as the most likely to return. Quick shout out before we move on to the next guy. United Commercial Insurance, the best in business insurance. They can write policies in 44 states across the country, but they're a local-based company, big BSU fans. So if you own a business and you're looking to see if you can get a better rate on business insurance, don't wait any longer. Just give United Commercial Insurance a call, UnitedCommercialInsurance.com. Transportation compliance service as well. If you're looking for a new career change, get on into the trucking industry. Over 1,000 people a day are getting into the trucking industry. Right now, it's one of the biggest booming job opportunities out there. Transcompservice.com. They can get you all set up with your permits and all the kind of stuff that you need to get going on the road. So give them another local company that's a national company. And how about this, Jay? They just signed up Warren G's tour bus. So Warren G, first of all, didn't know he was still touring, but Warren G's tour bus, they just worked with him. So they're working with celebrities now, and they can work with you as well. And we appreciate Transportation Compliance Service. And how about Boise Dentistry Co.? If you're looking for a new dentist, those are my kids there on the screen, as I've told you about before. Dr. Chris Meinert, huge BSU fan. So if you're not, eager about going to the dentist, it makes it a little easier. You can go talk some Boise State sports with Dr. Meinert. BoiseDentistryCo.com. Our whole family's made the switch, and we're thankful we did. So check them out there, BoiseDentistryCo.com. There's locations across the Treasure Valley. Okay, we're going to go from my most confident to return to my middle guy, my 50-50 guy for me, Jay, and I'm going Mladen Armouche. I got Mladen as the middle guy. I had heard earlier in the season it was likely he was going to leave. Even Leon told us, this guy's 24 or whatever. He wants to move on with his professional career. But as the season went on, I started to hear some rumblings. Maybe a girlfriend's involved, maybe some other things, and maybe it's not for sure that he's not going to want to play one more season. I know for some fans, some of the easy layups he misses, some of the bunnies he misses, sometimes earlier in the season, maybe he had some silly fouls, but overall, a 6'10", what is he, 250 pounds or whatever, guy in the middle there, to be able to rebound the way he does, to play defense the way he does. We saw against Graham Ike what he did in the Mountain West tournament. Again, I know his offense isn't the main reason he's out there, but that's fine. It's not the main reason he's out there. So you don't need him to score all those points. The defense, the rebounding that Mladen Armouche gives you, I think he's a huge piece for this team, because nothing against Lucas Milner or Najee Smith or Burke Smith. I think they might have to go to the transfer portal to find a center if he leaves. Lucas Milner can play solid minutes, but if you want to win the Mountain West, I'm not quite sure, and nothing against him. Just the size factor, and I thought he did a better job coming off the bench. I'm not sure Lucas Milner you want starting 30 games next year. So, and again, that's nothing against Lucas. Love the kid. He's got a great family background story. I just think that they might go to the transfer portal if Mladen Armouche were to leave. But Jay, you look at Armouche and what he did, obviously was one of only two players to start all 35 games, shot almost 50% from the field, as I mentioned, and averaged 26 and a half minutes, was one of the top rebounders in the country, or at least in the Mountain West, 8 rebounds per game, 7.1 points, so 7 and 8. And again, doesn't wow you in terms of the scoring, but he can have that game like he did against Utah State where he goes for 22 and 19 or whatever it is. He's a valuable piece, and I truly do think he's right on the you said Shavers 50-50, and for me that's Armouche.
I know. I think that Armouche is kind of ticked up towards that 50-50. If you probably asked us a month ago, it probably would have been more like 25-30, but it does seem like it's trending in more of a positive direction. Again, like you, I don't really know. For me, he probably would have been third on my pecking order of people that might want to come back. But I think the thing that you like about Mladen is, man, that dude is low ego maintenance. You know what I mean? Like, you never go into a game being like, okay, we got to get Mladen 10 shots tonight. You never think about stuff like that. It's always just like him doing a bunch of the little things that help a team win. I mean, Boise State this year, I think they ranked near top 40 in rebound margin in the entire NCAA. And that right there is your facilitator for that stat. And we know how much Leon Rice covets rebound margin in going out and chasing victories. And so on top of that, he was one of the best offensive rebounders in the country. And outside of Ryan Watkins, the best offensive rebounder of the Leon Rice era at Boise State. So if they could get him back, that would absolutely be a positive without a doubt in my mind. And what you said about Lucas Milner, man, I really do feel like Lucas came so far this season, and in those final, when he provided a few minutes, even during the NCAA tournament, like he did all right, like enough that it gives you hope and optimism about his future. But if you want to talk about a team that wants to win the Mountain West again, I also think you're right where he's the luxury to bring off the bench to spell a guy like Mladen. I feel like that's the perfect scenario for Boise State at that position going into 2022-2023 season.
Nick says, I think Lucas would be great, ready for more minutes. Perry says he likes big guys that can handle the ball. The thing with not Mladen. Oh, who are we just talking about?
Lucas Milner.
Lucas Milner. He's actually pretty athletic. I would say he's more athletic, obviously, than what Armouche shows sometimes. And you saw him with some of the dunks. He had the 2 big blocks on Nathan Mensah, right, in the championship game. I mean, Lucas Milner is certainly getting better. And he's a guy that I think is going to certainly take advantage of that COVID year and come back next year. And we should mention him and Najee Smith. I'm not counting on this because both have said they're planning to come back next year, so they're not involved in this. But we'll get to Milner in a future episode. We'll focus on him. But I think Armouche, he doesn't score all the best. And I know even my dad sometimes, he'll get so frustrated with some of the layups he misses under the basket, but he does so much for this team on defense and rebounding. You mentioned the rebounding. They finished as the number 13 defensive rebounding team in the country. And that was one of the reasons their defense was so good. They didn't give up a lot of offensive rebounds. And for me, think that Armouche is a big swing guy for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It feels like pure rim protector, like a guy like Milner might be a little better than Mladen, but if they could get Mladen back, that would be a huge boost to the hopes of repeating as Mountain West champs. Again, the thing that stands out with me, BJ, that dude is low ego, high output in terms of you just don't really have to worry about him too much, and he produces.
The Blue and Orange Store, theblueandorangestore.com. Get on out to Boise Town Square Mall. Get your new Boise State gear if you're getting ready for the spring game in a couple weeks. You can go online as well, theblueandorangestore.com, or head on out, as I said, Boise Town Square Mall. Best spot, the best selection, Boise State gear at the Blue and Orange Store. Ridley's Family Markets. ShopRidleys.com, 13 Idaho locations. They got the Skip app, the at-home shopping, the home delivery, all the great stuff. So ShopRidleys.com. You can think local, and I frequent the CUNA location often, so hopefully you'll check out ShopRidleys.com and Ridley's Family Markets. Okay, Jay, the third one for me, and I've been getting some flack for this, some folks disagreeing, but my least likely to return, and I'm not saying he's not returning. I just say of the 3, I think he has the smallest chance to return for me. And, that's Emmanuel Akot. I look at Emmanuel Akot and what he did this season, finished 38.7% from 3. As I said, made 55 threes. He missed 4 games there with the knee injury. Started 29 of the 31 games he played in, averaged almost 32 points per game, was third on the team, 10.6 points per game. We talk about his size at 6'8". You saw at one point during the season, if you have like a Boise State search on Twitter, you started seeing Emmanuel Akot's name come up from NBA draft guys in terms of, he's going to get a look. He's at 6'8", and the way he shoots the 3 ball. I feel like his potential is the highest for pro basketball in the United States, at least in terms of whether it's the G League or the NBA potentially. And I feel like at his age, he's now just turned 22, I believe, or
just 23.
Just turned 23.
Yeah.
And so for him to already be 23 years old, have gone through 4 or 5 years of college already. And just my personal opinion, he to me seems like the most of the 3, the guy that might say, you know what? It's not going to get any better for me. I'm just going to get a year older. I can get paid to play right now, and that's what I want to do. And so, he's close, obviously, with Kejab, who's leaving. Believe they're roommates. And so, I don't know. I'm not saying he's gone. I think there's a decent chance he could come back too. But of the 3, given their pro prospects, where they are, his ability to go get a paycheck right now, which the other guys could too. But I just feel like he's going to, have the best chance of playing in the United States, whether it be the G League or the NBA. And he may think he's ready to try to tap into that. And so I would put him 3rd on my list.
I feel like he has a lot to gain, though, by coming back, too, just because he has that makeup about him, that character about him that I feel like can kind of play that Abu Kejab role this year where it kind of galvanizes the team, sets the tone for the team. I think E-Man's a great leader. And so he really proved that he could shoot the ball more towards an elite level this year, too. I think his best season prior to this year was right around 33%. This year, he was up towards 39%. And as you said, that's even kind of when he was dealing with some injuries, which included the final game where he was only 1 of 6. And, he didn't walk on Sunday or Monday prior to the game while he was recovering from that sprained ankle. So, gosh, man, I'm not saying you're wrong because you're probably right, but I thought that he was kind of more trending towards maybe the most likely to come back. But
that's a perfect example of why nobody knows what's going to happen and how this whole thing could swing in such a different direction. I mean, I think all three could leave, and you'd understand why all three would leave, or all three could come back, and you'd understand why all three could come back. And I certainly see why you and others, actually a lot of people, think that Acott is the most likely. I think Johnny thinks that, and there's a lot of people that do believe that for the reasons you're pointing out, and what he could do to his stats with Kejab gone next year. Maybe he takes the 10.6 to 14, and maybe he shows again that he can be a 40% 3-point shooter, and all those things. But again, he would be 24, this time next year, entering the NBA draft and or the G League draft. But we don't know these guys' financial situations. We don't know their family situations. It's not fair for us really to comment, to kind of speculate on all that. But I mean, if I had a chance to get a paycheck and I could right now guarantee myself money, and I were in his shoes, I'd consider taking it. So again, I'm not saying he's gone. I still think he's probably 50-50. I think, Armouche, in my opinion, is like 70-30, and then I'd probably go like 80-20 maybe on Shaver. So I still think it's likely, or at least, somewhat likely that Acott does come back. I just think of the other, I would think the other ones would be a little higher. And Perry says, Jay, that the decision of one of them could affect the others. How do you see that playing in?
I mean, that could, like, if all three are like on the same page, like there's no reason why the expectation isn't the NCAA tournament again next year. But if all of a sudden, if E-Man pulls out, then maybe that does affect a guy like Marcus or Milan, where it's like, man, unless we hit a home run out of the transfer portal or something like that, like that's a steep hill to climb without that piece next year. And if my goal is to get back to the NCAA tournament, win a game, that goal just became a lot more difficult to attain. So what am I doing just waiting out another year?
Nick says Acott can continue to lead and develop into a possible late-round draft pick or high D-League pick if he were to come back. Jordan Morales says that James Webb got a ton of flack for leaving early, still playing, got an MVP award from his team in Spain this year. Hope fans support these guys' decision. But he could have maybe got drafted if he had come back for another year. It's every guy's different, every team's different, and we don't know what these guys is Emmanuel Acott only set on playing in the NBA, or is he a guy that wants to, is fine going right now and taking a paycheck in Italy or Spain or somewhere else? And we just, you don't know what these guys are thinking. Late in the season, we tried to ask some of these guys, but they were given the, focus on this season right here, right now. And we talked about this, Jay. Leon had said he hadn't had the conversations with those guys, and I truly did kind of believe him at the time that they really hadn't put too much thought into that until the season was over. I did try to poke around a little bit yesterday and see if there was anything going on, and it sounds like that with spring break and everything, guys are taking some time, and then next week when they come back from spring break is when you might start to have some conversations with coaches and things like that. But Jay, it also comes down to, you talk about on Boise State, but it's also nationally. How many guards are going into the draft? How many other guys are declaring? What else? Is there any chance? Does Boise State have anything to worry about, Jay, about any of the three transferring?
Doesn't feel like it. It feels like if they were going to stay in college, this is their best case scenario. That just.
And I hate to even bring that up, and I'm not even saying it's like likely or possible, but in this day and age with the transfer portal, they could go play right away. And if Emmanuel Acott thinks he's a Big 12 player or something, we've seen for the most part that doesn't usually work out when you transfer up a level. It's proven that the stats go way down, and I do think all three of these guys, their best option to help their careers is to come put up bigger numbers next season. But this team could look drastically different, Jay, depending on what those three guys decide to do.
Yeah, gosh, they come back though, man. And all of a sudden those young guys are just compliments, like Kobe Young and RJ Keene. If all of a sudden those are compliments coming off the bench and stuff, like very good chance that next year's team is much deeper than this year's team. That's a lot to be excited about. And who knows if Leon, if he hits the transfer portal once more, if one of those younger guys transfers out or something like that. So a lot, man, next couple of weeks are really going to dictate the energy and excitement around this Boise State men's basketball team, because if the big three come back that we laid out, wow, there is going to be a lot of energy around this team. And we'll get in, we barely touched on Abu today. I can't wait to talk about that guy, maybe next week or something, BJ, because he will not be easy to replace. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he averaged 15 points or so a game. It is everything else that dude brought to the table each and every day. So massive shoes to fill with Abu. But if they can get those three guys back, it makes everything a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and he does deserve, his own show probably to talk about this
He
stuff.
deserves a month of his own show.
We'll get to him at some point, and maybe we should have started with him. But I mean, the offseason question marks with a lot of people are obviously, but yeah, I mean, I think he is going to be one of those guys that is harder to replace than you think. It's not just we got to replace one starter. 15 points. I mean, I've told the story before, but he had been 2 weeks after transferring from Oregon. 2 weeks. He wasn't even on the roster. Didn't even know all of his players. He was the one apparently in the locker room at halftime, firing up the team more than anybody when they came back and won one of their games. I mean, he truly is and he ended up having to be the team spokesman a lot of time after the losses and things like that. Yeah, he was great, and we'll definitely try to get him on the show maybe and focus on him, as we move forward here. But a lot of questions. I mean, you even have the Leon Rice question, I guess. I mean, right now you only have one Power 5 opening, right? Or maybe none, I guess, now that South Carolina's filled. I'm trying to think if there was one left. But
there's not a lot open right now, and very little movement in the Pac-12 so far.
Which usually you get a late one that opens up that kind of reopens things. But to this point,
I think the Huskies won a couple of, maybe just enough games down the stretch to give Mike Hopkins another year. If you midway through the year, it seemed like he was just out the door. They kind of won a couple games of the Pac-12 tournament. You just wonder, they beat Oregon late in the year. I'm not going to mention another victory they had late in the year. I think he might have done maybe he did just enough. And for me, that would be a concern, because that is a good job up there on Montlake.
Hey, thanks to Lithia Ford of Boise, lithiafordboise.com. Get that newer used car or truck. The Idaho Central Credit Union, ICCU.com as well, if you're looking to switch over your personal or business bankings. And, of course, our title sponsor, as I said, rowpaint.com. Power and people, pride in painting, the official paint and coatings company of Boise State Athletics. Jay, appreciate your time. As I said, these things go pretty quick. I had a couple topics we didn't even get to, but luckily you're the one that we get a section on Friday, too. So maybe Friday we can hit on key jab and some of the other things with this team, and then kind of turn the attention to football on Monday or Tuesday next week. But we'll hit key jab, some of the other top questions I had about some other bench players and guys we want to see step up next year and where this team can. Scheduling is a big topic that I know Johnny and Prater have been talking about. Do they need to upgrade that next year? So we got a lot of things we can hit on with you. I already went over our time this week, so I apologize for that, Jay. But thanks, man. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
All good, brother. Sounds good.
There he is, Jay Tust, KTVB. You'll see him on the news. Him and Will Hall doing a great job. KTVB.com, KTVB, all the great stuff you can find there. Idaho's News Channel 7. Thanks, Jay. Thanks to you guys for watching this, and take care, folks. Bronco Nation News, BroncoNationNews.com.